Happy Sabbath. All right, happy Sabbath. Today is February 10, 2018, and we are going to continue with the parable of the 10 virgins, the line of the Millerites, specifically about the letters of Samuel Snow. Why is the letters of Samuel Snow so important? Because basically it teaches us how our pioneers understands the third angel's message, right? And the third angel's message, if we don't have the third angel's message, we're not the Seventh-day Adventist church, right? We're supposed to be proclaiming the third angel's message. If we don't even understand the third angel's message and our pioneers, how they actually developed it and understood it, wow. We will be lost because we won't know our history, right? And to know what happens now, we know we have to study our history because history repeats. Okay? We ended up last week right at this slide right here because this slide shows who's this distinguished. He is Peter Gerard Damsteeg. He is a Dutch professor of theology at Andrews University. And he basically summarized the story of the Millerites, right? And his summary of the story of Millerites was that Samuel Snow studied and found that the ministry of Jesus started in the fall of 27 AD. And he was crucified in the middle of 31 AD, right? Yeah. It was Samuel Snow that figured this out. Because William Miller thought that Jesus actually died in 33 AD. It was Samuel Snow that's found out, you know what? It was in the middle of that 70th week. There are 70 weeks, and Jesus died in the middle of that last week, right? And that's last week, if we look at it through chronology and through the calendar of the Jews and everything like that, we realize that it lines up with the spring of 31 AD. And because of that, we can now understand that October 22, 1844 is when the Day of Atonement is. And the Day of Atonement has to fall also because Jesus died on a spring. It means that the Day of Atonement has to fall on a fall. It has to fall on a fall. So how did they figure this out? Okay, we did this last week. How did they figure this out? Through Daniel 8 and Daniel 9, right? Daniel 8. Okay, Daniel 8, all right? Then I heard one saint. Okay, let me see. Then I heard one saint speaking to another saint and said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision? What kind of vision? It's a Chow zone vision, right? This is a Chow zone vision. A Chow zone vision is Medo-Persia. What's after Medo-Persia? Greece. After Greece? Pagan Rome. After pagan Rome? Papal Rome. That's a Chow zone vision. It's a vision of historic prophecy, all right? How long shall be the Chow zone vision concerning the daily? What's the daily? Paganism. Paganism and the transgression of desolation. Paganism and papalism to give both the sanctuary and the host. All right. The sanctuary and the host has to be trodden underfoot. How long will paganism and papalism trodden the sanctuary and the host underfoot? Right? And Daniel 8:14. It is the central verse in Adventism doctrine. Right? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days. Right? Unto 2,300 days. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. All right. But in the original Hebrew, what did it say? Unto 2,300 what? Mornings and evenings, right? But in the King James Version, it says and days. But in the original Hebrew, it says mornings and evenings. Very, very, very important. Okay? If you don't understand that, you're going to miss the whole thing. All right? It's got to be mornings and evenings. Okay? 8:14. It's very important. If you miss this, you're going to miss the whole thing. Okay? 8:14. And the sanctuary shall be cleansed. All right? Okay, so Daniel understood the chow zone, because then he was given the understanding of the chow zone. But he did not understand the 2,300 days vision. He did not understand that Mare vision. What the Mare vision, when one saint spoke to another saint, he doesn't understand what that means, right? It was only in Daniel 9. Right? You go to Daniel 9. At the beginning of the supplications, Daniel 9 verse 23. At the beginning of the supplications, the commandment came forth. And I come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Understand the chow zone vision, the matter, and consider the Mare vision. Okay, all right. And 70 weeks are determined upon the people, upon the holy city, to finish the transgression. Right? Verse 25. Know therefore and understand that from the beginning forth of the commandment to restore and to build the Jerusalem, right? When was it? The commandment to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem. 457 BC. Which king? Artaxerxes. Right? Until the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Right, 60. Okay, so let's put this on the line. The answer, this shall be 2,300. How long shall be the vision for the paganism and papalism to trodden underfoot God's people and the sanctuary? Until 2,300 days. All right? Know ye therefore from the beginning of the commandment. There's going to be, all right, see here, this is 1844, okay? All right. This is going to, and 70 weeks are determined upon the, what does it mean that 70 weeks are determined? It's cut out. 70 weeks is cut out, right? So 70 weeks cut out, right? But remember, from the beginning of the commandment, from Artaxerxes, it's going to be 7. This is 7, right? Plus 62. 7 plus 62 is what? 69. But remember, it's 70 weeks. So what happened to this 1 week? And in the midst of that week, right, the one who is anointed, yeah, he's going to be cut off, right? So it's in the middle of that week, right? But he's going to be cut off, right? So, 27 and 34. Because if we count 69 weeks, it's from 457 to 27, right? If we count 70 weeks, it's 490 years. It adds up to 34. So in the middle is 31 AD. And we know Jesus died in what part of the year did he die in? What season did he die in? He died in the spring. Okay. If he died in the spring right here, in the middle of this week, it means the end of this prophecy ends in what? Because this is 3.5 years. It has to be autumn. All right? Now, the crucial understanding that Samuel Snow had was the 2,300-day prophecy is an Arab and Boger, meaning it's a fullness of year. It has to be full years. It has to be full years. So if this ends in the fall and it's full years, it means this has to start in the what? It has to start in the fall. Okay? If this starts in the fall and if this is also the beginning of the 2,300 days, it means that it ends in the fall. All right? Okay, very, very important. That Arab and Boger means fullness of years. That's why it's fullness of years. What? Arab and Boger. It's E-R-E-B, and Boger is a B-O-Q-U-E-R. Yeah. For Arab and Boger means evenings and mornings. Mornings and evenings. Right. It's fullness of the year. Okay, this is very important. Okay, so we see that there's two time prophecies, the 70 weeks and the 2300 days, okay? These are two time prophecies that starts on a specific date, 457, right? Okay, we did this last week, but I'm going to quiz you again. Give me two other time prophecies in the book of Daniel that starts on the same date. That's different from 70 weeks and 2300 days. There's two other time prophecies in the book of Daniel that starts on the same date. 1335 and 1290. What year does that? Okay, it's in Daniel 12 verse 11 and Daniel 12 verse 12. When does that time prophecy, when does those time prophecies start? When the daily is taken away, right? Okay. So this is 1290 and this is 1335. And both of them start when? When the daily is taken away, 508. Okay, my question is, does these two time prophecies use fullness of time? Is it from fall to fall or spring to spring? And if so, how can you prove it? Does it use, remember, Arab and Boger is fullness of year. It has to be from fall to fall. Okay, do these time prophecies use Arab and Boger? You look at Daniel 12, verse 11, and Daniel 12, verse 12. 1335 days, is it Arab and Boger? 1290 days, is it Arab and Boger?
How do we know from?
You have to use your e-sword, right? Right. Is it Arab and Boger or not? Oh, that's why you have to use their e-sword. That's why in these days we have our little iPad or iPhone or telephone, and we can use. What is it? Does it use Arab and Boger or not? I'm quizzing you.
Well, I think they use that. Otherwise, they are not able to pinpoint the real day when Jesus entered the most holy place.
It's for Arab, for the 2300 days. It's Arab and Boger, right? But for Daniel 12 verse 12 and Daniel 12 verse 11, does it use Arab and Boger for this?
Yom.
It uses Yom. It's a different time prophecy. Okay, all right. Now, how can you prove? Now, because if this starts on the same date and it's fullness of year, then it has to end on the same season, right? This ends in what year? Is the 1290 ends on what year? 1798, right? 1290 plus 508 is 1798. What happens in 1798? The papacy received its deadly wound. What date did the papacy receive its deadly wound? February 20, right? February 20, 1798. Okay, if this fullness of year is here, this means that 1335 has to end on February 20 also, correct? If it's fullness of year? If it's a fullness of year, but it's Yom. That's why it's not a fullness of year. That's why this ends on February 20. What about 1335? What date does 1335 end in? It's Yom. What?
March? April?
April 19, 1844. April 19. That's why they don't end on the same date, right? They don't end on the same season, even though there's different years, because this is not a fullness of year. So the 2300 days is a very special time prophecy. It is the only time prophecy that uses a fullness of year, right? In the book of Daniel, right? That's why God's hand was covering that mistake. People did not realize this until Samuel Snow figured it out. Oh, this is what it means. Then, you know what? Are we taught this anymore? Nobody teaching this anymore.
No. They don't even know the
Right.
They don't even know what's the 23.
Right?
Well, Samuel Snow might have really have an in-depth study.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
He really, and God actually revealed it to him, right? He was the one that figured out that the 2300 days is a fullness of year. He's the one that understood it, okay? And then he understood that Jesus was crucified in the midst of the week on 31 AD. You know, Samuel Snow is the one that figured this out, right? Samuel Snow. It wasn't William Miller. It wasn't Ellen White. It was Samuel Snow. Okay. All right. We continue. Now we also have Leroy Froome. Who's Leroy Froome? Leroy Froome is a very good historian, okay? He summarized basically Millerite history. And you know what? He says Samuel Snow was teaching that the feasts in the time of the 7th month actually will be fulfilled at the time just before Jesus comes the second time, right? And as early as May 1844, Snow wrote that John's ministry began in the latter part of 26 AD and ended in the autumn of 27 AD, right? So that Jesus actually was baptized in the autumn of 27 AD, all right? Okay, so that's basically what he says.
What's that feast? How do you interpret that feast before the coming of Jesus?
Those are the feasts. We did this last week. The feast that happens at the time when Jesus first came, that was fulfilled, was the Passover, right? Because he is the Passover lamb. So it was fulfilled at the time when Jesus first came. He is the Passover lamb. Was he the wave sheaf? Right? He was the wave sheaf. Was he the unleavened bread? Yes, he's the unleavened bread, right? So the unleavened bread and the wave sheaf was fulfilled during the time when Jesus was here. And what about the Pentecost? Was it fulfilled right after he went to heaven? It was fulfilled. So those 3 time prophecies in the spring were fulfilled during the time when Jesus first came to earth. Meaning, there's 3 more time prophecies. There are 3 more feasts, which are in the 7th month. What are they? The blowing of the trumpets, Day of Atonement, and the Tabernacle, the Feast of Booths, right? Those were not fulfilled yet. Meaning, so William Miller and Samuel Snow says, those will have to be fulfilled before the second coming. Yeah. So knowing the feast is very important, okay? Yeah. The spring feasts were fulfilled during the time when Jesus first came, and the fall feasts will be fulfilled before his second coming, okay? We did this last week, right? So, but anyway, we continue this, right? And our historians, Damsteeg and also Leroy Froome, they also know this, We should all know this too, because this is our history, right? So Jesus was crucified in the midst of the week, all right? In the midst of the 70th week, all right? Okay. I won't read the whole thing, okay? All right. Now, this is what Samuel Snow basically said. I believe this argument to be based on correct premises and to be perfectly sound. What then is the conclusion? It must certainly be this, that as the 70 weeks ended in the autumn of AD 34, the remaining part of 2300 days being added brings us to the autumn of 1844. Because 70 weeks end in the autumn, it means that the 2300 days also has to end in the autumn, right? And I'm confident from the light I have received from God's blessed word in these glorious types, the types, right? The types, Those are the feasts, are the types, which has been given in mercy for his children to understand that our King and Savior will appear in his glory in the 7th month of the Jewish sacred year. Remember, they have to also understand the Jewish sacred year. And it has to be based on what type of reckoning. How do they calculate? Because the Jews have two different ways of calculating their years. It's not on the rabbinical, which is the modern way. It has to be on the old Karaite reckoning, right? This Karaite reckoning is how our pioneers understood how to calculate the Jewish years, right? The Jewish sacred year. Okay, we're going to put this on a line, all right? Let's put this on a line. Remember, it was William Miller that first said that Jesus is going to come in the autumn because the fall feasts of the Jews were not fulfilled during his first advent. So the fall feast has to be fulfilled before his second advent. All right? William Miller was the first one to preach this. But what happened? Did he continue to preach the same thing? How come he was disappointed in the spring? He eventually had to change his mind. He says, you know what? Jesus, then he actually said that Jesus is going to come in the spring of 1844. Huh? But you know, Samuel Snow said, no, Jesus is not going to come in the spring. Jesus is actually going to come in the fall. So you know what? At the time of the disappointment in spring, Samuel Snow was not really disappointed. Because he said, you know what? Jesus is not going to come in the spring. Jesus is going to come in the fall. So even though William Miller and the rest of the Millerites were disappointed right here, Samuel Snow, he actually wasn't that disappointed. Because he was actually predicting Jesus is going to come in the fall. Right. Okay. A lot of people are going to be disappointed, but there's some people who have been studying is not going to be disappointed. All right? Okay. All right. Now, and then Snow, on May 1 and May 2, right? He understood that Jesus was crucified in the middle of the week, which is spring of 31 AD. And this is very crucial. This understanding is very important to understand, right? October 22, all right? Okay, we put this on a line. That's right here. This is after the disappointment, right? Okay. All right, what else did Samuel Snow write about? Yeah? We're studying Samuel Snow's letters, right? We're studying Samuel Snow's letters. Okay. All right. He wrote this on June 27, 1844. Right? June. No, he actually had it published in June 27, 1844. Dear Brother Southard, about last year, okay, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Last year, I was teaching about that the earth is going to end after 6,000 years. And you know, it's got to end in the fall. And then I teach also that the 2520, the 7 times of the Gentiles, is going to end in the fall. The 2300 days and 1335 is going to end in 1843, all right? All these dates are going to end in 1843. I was teaching this and I was blessed. But you know what? Jesus didn't come. And we thought Jesus was going to come on April 19. And it turns out Jesus didn't come in April 19. But what else did he say? Samuel Snow said this. Remember, he wrote this on June 27, 1844. June 27. It's very important. Why? He said that it was necessary that a mistake should be made in regard to ending of the days. And this mistake should be general among the expectants of the kingdom, in order that their faith might be tried. And a wicked world and a world-loving church might have ample opportunity to manifest their hatred, right? So that they can make scorn of your truth. Even though you made a mistake, what is going to happen? people are going to make fun of your truth. Right? To mock and scoff and harden themselves in their sin and ripen for their coming destruction. Does this sound like 2 Peter? Right? We just studied the Sabbath school. It's happened like this all the time. Right? He had not such a mistake been made. Had not such a mistake been made, there are some prophecies that could never have been completely fulfilled. There had to be a mistake. Otherwise, Ezekiel 12:22 cannot be fulfilled. What does Ezekiel 12:22 say? Son of man, what is that proverb that ye have in the land of Israel saying? The days are prolonged and every vision faileth. Yeah, you know, all these time prophecies that you're saying, they fail. Oh no. You know, that actually happened. Right? What about Habakkuk 2, verse 2 and 3? And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie, though it tarry. There's going to be a tarrying time because you're going to be disappointed. There's going to be a disappointment and a tarrying time. Though it tarry, wait for it. Because you have to wait for it. Because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Otherwise, if there was no disappointment, there was no miscalculation of the prophecies, these prophecies of Ezekiel and Habakkuk will not be fulfilled. So it was actually designed by God. He had his hand, right, covering a mistake. He designed that mistake, right? I saw, now look at this. Ellen White eventually wrote, right? She wrote in Spiritual Gifts, page 137. I saw the people of God. When Ellen White said, I saw the people of God, what did she mean? She saw it in a what? She saw it in a vision. I saw that the people of God, she saw it in a vision. That they were joyful in expectation, looking for their Lord. But God designed to prove them. God designed that his hand covered a mistake in the reckoning of the prophetic periods. Right? Ellen White saw this. Those who were looking for the Lord did not discover it. And the most learned men who opposed the time also failed to see the mistake. Right? Even the pastors did not see this. God designed that his people should meet with a disappointment. So Ellen White saw this in a vision. The time passed, and those who looked with joyful expectation for the Lord were sad and disheartened, while those who had not loved the appearing of Jesus, but embraced the message through what? Do we see that now? A lot of people are only curious because they are fearful of the coming destruction. We're pleased that he did not come at it. Those who are fear of judgment, they're going to be happy that there's going to be a disappointment. Because, you know what? Turned out I'm really not prepared. I saw the wisdom of God in proving his people. He had to test his people and giving them a searching test to discover those who would shrink and turn back in the hour of trial. So what is this? This is a trial of how to be able to overcome disappointment that's going to be even bigger in the future, right? Yeah. You have to have small trial runs first, right? So that you can eventually be able to overcome the big one that's going to happen, okay? And God designed this specifically, right? Now, when was Ellen White's first vision? Remember, she saw this in a vision. It was in December of 1844. Right? Ellen White saw.
That is my first vision, said that.
Yeah. It was actually December 1844. So who was given by the Lord the understanding that this mistake is actually a test? Samuel Snow. In June, remember June? 6 months before Ellen White was given in a vision. You know? Samuel Snow was really blessed. He had an increase of knowledge. Was he given it all at one time? No. Little by little. Okay? This is very important because we are all going to learn. Are we going to be able to handle everything all at one time? Impossible. Everything has to be little by little. Right? Little by little. There are no new truths. It's all truths that has always been there, but the hand of the Lord has been covering it.
The vision was given while they are praying too with a group of people.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's the first vision. It was in Portland. It was in Portland, Maine. And her last vision was 40 years later, in 1884, in Portland, Oregon.
Also.
Right. Yeah. That's her last open vision.
Because if the truth is given at one time, we cannot really.
We cannot really handle it, right? Yeah. Her last open vision. This is her first open vision, 1844, in Portland, Maine. Okay, all right. So remember what happened. Samuel Snow was given the understanding. Okay, right? He understood in May. That is in the midst of the week, and then he understood that the mistake was a test in June. Right? I'm going to put June right there. June 27, right? All right. It was all an increase in knowledge right here. Okay. All right. Now we go back to Leroy Froome. Leroy Froome says that, when the time of Samuel Snow, he was preaching. And he was living in Massachusetts at that time. And he was living in Worcester. Remember, I say Worcester? Yeah, Worcester. He was living in Worcester, and near Boston. And you used to live there, or you used to live very close by. But anyway, he was invited to preach in the large Boston Tabernacle. Right? All right. Okay. All right. Let me see. In May, he returned to Worcester, remaining until July 21. Then, by invitation, Snow preached that day in the large Boston Tabernacle on the text. What did he preach on July 21 in the Boston Tabernacle? Behold, the bridegroom cometh. What? On the 10th day of the 7th month. Now he becomes very specific now. Now he says it's on the 10th day of the 7th month. So it's an increase in knowledge here, right? Now he's beginning to develop how all these things, based on the 70 weeks, the 2300 days, the fullness of the year, that Christ was actually broken in the middle of the week in 31 AD, all these. And all the mistakes had to be given because it was a test for them to study more, right? Okay. And he preached at the Boston Tabernacle on July 21. Okay. So what does Ellen White say about this? And when he preached there, one thing, when he preached there, a lot of people did not understand it. It was just too much for them, right? And I would say it is probably, he had to preach it multiple times before people were able to understand this. Yeah. The first time he preached in July 21, it did not hold traction, right? People did not understand this, right? What did Ellen White say? While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out and meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. Matthew 25, verse 5-7. In the summer of 1844, midway, right in the middle, between the time that it had been first thought that the 2300 days would end, from between April 19 and the autumn of the same year, and October 22, in the middle of April 19 and October 22, exactly midway, or exactly in the midway, to which it was afterward found that they have extended, the message was proclaimed by who? Samuel Snow. In the very words of Scripture, Behold, the bridegroom cometh. The midnight cry message was given at midnight on July 21, 1844. Okay? Yeah. And on that date, he first preached, right? He first gave it to the public, based on all the things that he studied, that Jesus is going to come. Obviously, he got it wrong that Jesus is going to come to the earth. Jesus is going to come into the most holy place eventually, right? Yeah. On the day of the antitypical Day of Atonement, on the 7th month, the 10th day, right? Okay. Right. You know what? Just before he did that, look at this. July 18, 3 days before that. 3 days before he gave his sermon at the Boston Tabernacle. He was preaching about confirming the covenant. What's confirming the covenant? Who confirmed the covenant? Jesus confirmed the covenant for how long? For 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he was cut off. So how did Jesus confirm the covenant? What covenant was it that he confirmed? The gospel. What is the gospel? Behold, the bridegroom cometh, because the bridegroom is me. But Jesus said, the bridegroom is me, but also I am the seed. I am the seed of the woman that is going to bruise the head of the serpents, right? Serpent, right? That's the gospel. So he had to confirm the covenant for how many? For 3.5 years. He had to confirm the covenant. What was the covenant he was confirming? All those prophets that was preaching about me, prophesying about me, starting from Moses. You know, you name it. Daniel, Ezekiel, Malachi, every one of them, Isaiah, all of them was talking about me. Right? Now I am coming in the flesh. I'm confirming the covenant. Here, I am the lamb. I am the Passover lamb. I am the seed of Abraham. I am the seed of David. Right? I am the covenant. So he confirmed it in the flesh. Right? What about the last half? The 3.5 weeks. The last 3.5 years. Who confirmed the covenant? Because he went to heaven. Who confirmed the covenant in the last 3.5 years? His disciples. How did they confirm his covenant? Because they were witnesses of the covenant. Right?
Well, it's amazing. Right after the fall, Christ already told God in Genesis 3:15 that I'll put enmity between you, the woman, and the seed.
Mm-hmm.
And he is that seed that eventually fulfilled what he was telling Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So he confirmed the covenant. I am that seed. Okay. Now what did his disciples? Peter said, we actually have seen, and we actually have heard, and we also have what? We have touched.
Yes.
We have touched the covenant, and now we are witnessing to you. We are the witnesses, right? We have a more sure word of prophecy, more sure than any of those cunningly devised fables about who Jesus is and how he will come and who the Father is. It's all cunningly devised fables. We have a more sure word of prophecy because what? We actually have heard it with our own ears. We saw it with our own eyes. And we touched it with our own hands.
Peter experienced the truth of the matter when he said to the crippled, remember, crippled man, in the name of Christ of Nazareth.
Yeah. Because we are witnesses of the covenant. So now, all of this, the understanding of the 70 weeks, the understanding of the confirming the covenant, the understanding of the fullness of year, all these have to be understood before you can give the message at midnight. Because July 21 is midnight, right? So you're going to have to give a message at midnight. Behold, the bridegroom cometh. But before that, right? Right? Before that. See? Right? He had to confirm the covenant. He had to understand what it means to covenant. And on the 10th day of the 7th month, he said that Jesus is going to come in autumn of 1844. He gave this on July 21. July 21 is midway between April 19 and October 22. It's the 5th day of the 4th month. Right? It's the 5th day of the 4th month when you calculate it on the Jewish calendar. This is the 1st day of the 1st month. This is the 10th day of the 7th month. Exactly in the middle. Exactly in the midst of the week. No, not in the midst of the week, yeah? In the midst, exactly, midway. It's midnight, right? Midnight. Okay, Samuel Snow gave that message. 3 days before it, he gave the sermon confirming the covenant. Remember? So you see this. After the disappointment, there's an increase of knowledge. There's an increase of knowledge. Multiple steps have to be made so that you are able to begin to give the midnight cry at midnight. Right? Yeah. Behold, the bridegroom cometh. Okay, where are we? Okay, we still got Christ. Yeah. It's a lot of information here. Yeah. History. But remember, history repeats. Okay. The 5th day of the 4th month. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's midnight. Okay, we're going to continue. Now this is August 8, 1844. We're getting closer. Now what does he now teach? This was when Jesus came to Galilee, proclaiming the glad tidings of the kingdom of God, saying, the time is fulfilled. We have the very vast reason for believing that this was in the autumn of 27 AD. Right? And there are just 480 years, 83 years. Deduct this from 2300 and the remainder is 1877. So many years remain incomplete the time of Daniel's vision when Jesus commenced that proclamation in Galilee. And from the autumn of AD 27, there's 1817 years reach to the autumn of 1844. The dispensation of the fullness of the time. See, fullness of time. A full year. Arab and Boger. Right? Well, upon us. Upon us within 3 months. Ooh, within 3 months we're going to be there. Wow. Okay. Then our great high priest, Jesus Christ, will come out of heavenly holies where he has been ministering. Blessed his waiting people. That will be the second advent. Unto them that will look upon him, he shall appear the second time with a sin unto salvation. This is how they said, Jesus is going to cleanse the earth. A conclusive logic of the presentation made a profound impression, and practically all in the camp accepted. The next day, his presentation, you know what? I'm actually jumping forward already. Right? Okay. The next day, his presentation will be repeated by request, the great clarity and detail. Since Christ was crucified on the spring 31 AD, the midst of the prophetic weeks of 7 years, and 3.5 years from the spring 31 leads to the autumn of 34. Therefore, the remaining years of the 2300 days calculated from autumn 31 must lead to autumn 1844. And on this year, the specific 10th day of the 7th month coincides according to the Karaite Jewish method of calendation with October 22 of the Gregorian calendar. So our pioneers were able to correlate the Karaite Jewish reckoning with the Gregorian calendar that we still use. Right? All right. Oh, I'm sorry, my slides are a little messed up here. Right? Leroy Froom. Leroy Froom, he wrote in the Prophetic Faith that it was actually during the time of the Exeter camp meeting, right? August 14 and August 15, that Samuel Snow came, right? He came on August the 14th, right? And when he came there, he started to give his study on August 14th. But the people were not all in that camp meeting at night. They said, you know what? You have to repeat it the following day. Then the following day when he repeated, it was all received. You know, he gave it on that Exeter camp meeting, he gave it twice, on August 14 and August 15. Right? He brought out 4 points. The correction of the previous recognized error in calculation that brought about the shift from 1843 to 1844. The 70 weeks of years of both began and ended in the autumn. The Mosaic tabernacle types indicate the second advent will occur in the autumn, not in the spring, but on the Day of Atonement, or the 10th day of the 7th month, just as the slaying of the Passover lamb pointed to Christ's death on the 14th day of the first month. And as the Passover crucifixion, the wave sheaf resurrection, and the allotted time of Pentecost, that came already when he first came, right? Snow continued that he believed the antitypical Day of Atonement will come on the exact date specified. And he specified what? October 22, 1844. Okay, all right? So this was here. That's the Exeter camp meeting. Okay, this Exeter camp meeting will correspond to the August 14 and August 15. August 15 correlates with the first day of the 5th month. Right? Where do we get the first day of the 5th month and the first day of the first month from the Bible? Where do we get that? Ezra 7 verse 9. So our pioneers understood Ezra 7 verse 9. They understood the Karaite reckoning. They understood the Jewish feast. They understood 70 weeks. They understood 2,300 days, fullness of year. All those understandings have to be put together to be able to understand October 22, 1844. Okay? So the fullness of time has to end in AD 1844. Right? He published that on August 8th. And on October 22, he made it is on October 22, 1844. And he gave it twice on these dates, on August 14 and August 15 at the Exeter camp meeting. All right? So here, August 8th, he was preaching still, autumn 1844. And then here, at the Camp Exeter meeting, he was preaching, that is actually October 22, 1844. So he's becoming more specific. Increase of knowledge, more. It comes in at a time. All right? Okay. Right? More specific. Okay. Right? We keep going. Right? I'll try to... All right. Here's another one. Here's another letter. This is about prophetic chronology. Right? He's writing to Brother Southard. And he wrote it August 22. Several days after the camp meeting. Right? He wrote it August 22. Right? Now he's talking about confirming the covenant for 1 week, right? But he also is talking about this, what events marked the commencement of the week, right? What events was it that marked the commencements of the week, right? Let any man read carefully the connection of this subject. He must surely see that this, and most striking, the glorious deliverance of the people of God and the whole creation which is now groaning under the curse, when their Redeemer shall come to Zion and accomplish the redemption of the bodies of his saints and the redemption of the purchased possessions. Our blessed Lord will therefore come to the astonishment of all of them that dwell upon the earth, and to the salvation of those who truly look upon him. on the 10th day of the 7th month of the year of Jubilee, and that is the present year, 1844. If they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, although one rose from the dead. Okay? And he goes on. This is a very long article, but I'm just going to summarize. Basically, he says, according to what they calculate, that the 6,000 years has to end in 1844. Okay, what else does he say? That the 2520, the 7 times of the Gentiles, has to end in 1844. Okay? All right? That the 2300 days ends at 1844. All right, what else? The 70 weeks, well, the 70 weeks doesn't, but the 70 weeks is necessary for you to figure out the 2300 days. Okay? The first day of the 7th month, that's the blowing of the trumpets, is in the 7th month. The 10th day of the 7th month, that's the Day of Atonement. All these. The 15th day of the 7th month, that's the Feast of Tabernacles. All of these is in the 7th month. All of these, right? Okay. All of these end up that Jesus has to come in the autumn of 1844 on October 22, right? He puts all of these, right? He makes it all these points. They all have to end on October 22, 1844. Okay. All right, let's put this a little bit. I got this slide from the previous studies. You'll recognize this slide of how we actually figured out all these dates. Okay. All right. For upon the first day of the first month began he to go up from Babylon. This is Ezra 7:9. And on the first day of the 5th month came he to Jerusalem. So Ezra left Babylon and he arrived in Jerusalem. Right? He left Babylon on the first day of the first month and he arrived on the first day of the 5th month. If we put that, where's the first day of the first month is right here. Oh, sorry, the first day of the first month is right here. Right? First day of the first month is in the time of the Millerites, it's actually April 19. April 19, right? 1844, right? That's the tarrying time. That's the first disappointment, okay? But we also see the first day of the 5th month right here. First day of the 5th month is right here, okay? That correlates to August 15, 1844. That's the day that he gave the second presentation at Exeter Camp Meeting, right? Exeter Camp Meeting, okay. Where do we find the 5th day of the 4th month? The 5th day of the 4th month was when Ezekiel had a vision. And when he had a vision, what kind of vision was it? Had a Mara vision, right? When he had a Mara vision, what happened to him? He had to fall down. Right? And to be humble himself, right? When you have a Mara vision, you are humbled to the dust, right? Who also had Mara visions and humbled to the dust? Daniel, in Daniel 10. Daniel 10, he was humbled and he saw. When he was touched 3 times, he was humbled to the dust. And what did he see? That the kingdom of Medo-Persia is going to be taken over by Greece. Right. Yeah. He saw. Okay, who else had a Mara vision? You know, Ezekiel obviously had a Mara vision. He had 3 visions. His first vision was the wheels within the wheels. His second vision was the judgment on Jerusalem. That's in Ezekiel 3. And then his third vision is the vision of the 4 abominations in Ezekiel 8 and 9. Right? Yeah. So he had a vision of what's going to happen to Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, the abominations of Jerusalem, and then the angel of the Lord is going to cut down the watchman in front of the
door of the church.
and the door of the church. That's Ezekiel 9. Who else had a Mara vision? That 12-year-old boy had a Mara vision. Samuel. He had a Mara vision. And what was his vision? A Mara vision is the vision where you actually reflect the character of Jesus. Not only you reflect the character of Jesus, but you actually have to give a prophecy of what's going to happen. Because in those times, when they were given Mara visions, there was no prophets. And the gift of prophecy was being restored to that prophet. Right? So at Samuel's time, there was no real prophet. Right? So the gift of prophecy is restored to the people, and it happens on the 5th day of the 4th month. It happened at midnight. So they have to give a what? A prophecy of what's going to happen to who? Eli and the sons and the ark. Wow. So what happens at midnight then? When there's a Mara vision, you're going to have to make a prediction. The gift of prophecy is going to return to you. You're going to have to give a prophecy about what? What's going to happen to the church and what's going to happen to the nation. Right? Ah.
The most important thing there is that it's humbling.
Yeah, you have to be humble.
Not be given by God.
Right. You're humbled. And what about Jesus? Did Jesus at midnight, was Jesus on his face praying to the Lord in Gethsemane? Right? Yeah. In Matthew 26. He was on his face. He said, if possible, let this cup pass from me. And he had to pray to his Father on his face. He was humbled to the dust also, right? Jesus. At midnight. Okay, after that, did he have to go and meet Caiaphas? And what did he give? What prophecy did he give to Caiaphas? You are going to see me again. Right? And who was Caiaphas? The leader of the church. You're going to see me again one day. You're going to remember me. Remember me. Right? He said, are you the Son of God? He said, you're going to see me one day. Because you will be resurrected. And then with the wicked. Right? And that's the leader of the church. Right? Right. That's going to happen at midnight. Right? And before midnight, Samuel Snow had to give all these increasing knowledges. All the increase of knowledge that he had to be received. Multiple times he had to be given. So that he is able to give that midnight cry message. Right? That's happening to us right now. Okay? That's actually happening with us. Okay. So we're about to finish here. I'm just going to try to finish this part. Okay, the prophetic chronology. All the chronology he's trying to, although his application was wrong because he thought that Jesus was going to come to earth, right? It turns out that Jesus actually enters into the most holy place. But all these prophetic chronologies, he's now putting it together so that they can actually figure out October 22, right? Right here. Okay. So, there's going to be pre-midnight predictions. Increase of knowledge before midnight. You know, when you look at this, there's also going to be an increase of knowledge before the midnight cry. And there's going to be an increase of knowledge before the Sunday law. Right? That's very important.
Well, I'm just thinking about what you're telling, the dates. And the most important thing now that I will always remember is the autumn
Right.
of 1844.
Right.
And we don't know. We cannot tell really a very specific. But the the Lord, the Holy Spirit will give you that sense of feelings.
It is close. It is close. Because we're living right here. We're this time period right here. Our next time waymark is actually midnight. Or actually, our next waymark is midnight. Okay?
The study of the sunset.
Yeah. So this we now basically finished, right? Because at October 22, 1844, did Christ come?
No.
He came to the most holy place. He came to the Ancient of Days in the most holy place. He did not come to earth. And who was given the vision of seeing that? It's not Samuel Snow.
No, it's
Hiram Edson, right? He was in the cornfield, right?
yeah.
He was in a cornfield. Then he understood. Then they realized that the judgment of the dead starts, right? The judgment of the dead. So this is the dispensation. There's a change of dispensation here, because now there's the beginning of the judgment of the dead in the most holy place. In the most holy place. Right. Okay, let's see. What? Okay. You know what? This was okay. Now, to be able to understand how we can apply this to our timeline. Okay. So we study William Miller's history. How does this apply to us? Okay. How does this apply to us? Remember, this is John Loughborough. John Loughborough, he did not attend the camp meeting, but he only wrote this as if because somebody told him the story. Okay, and this is what he wrote: the minister that thus walked into the stand was Samuel Snow, who in a few sentences gave them the path of the midnight cry message. Elder James White was in that audience. I was not there. Now, John Loughborough said, I wasn't there. Okay? I'm just writing this because I heard from somebody. But got my light on the subject from those who were there. Brother Snow thus questioned them, where are we in our Advent experience? So he was asking, where are we in our Advent experience? And from the answer of the audience says what? We're in the tarrying time. Okay? They understood they were in the tarrying time. Okay? How long was the vision to tarry? Until midnight. What is a day in prophecy? A year, right? Yeah, see, the people understood this. He was asking from the pulpit. Then what would a night be? 6 months, right? If a year is, a whole day is a year, then a night is 6 months, right? Okay. Then what would midnight be? 3 months, right? From sunset to midnight is how many? How long? 3 months then, right?
Yeah.
Right. From sunset to midnight is 3 months. How long have we been in the tarrying time? Just 3 months. Oh, wow. That means we're very close to midnight. Then it is just the midnight now. So we're now at midnight, he says. And I am here with the midnight cry. I'm giving you the bridegroom cometh. Behold, the bridegroom cometh. And in a few sentences, he explained that it was the fall of 457 that the decree went forth. And so they were short 6 months in their reckoning, showing them that the 2300 days would terminate on October 22, 1844, instead of the spring, as they had previously supposed, right? It was not on April 19, it's going to be October 22. Then in a strong voice he said, behold, the bridegroom cometh on the 10th day of the 7th month, October 22, 1844. Go ye out and meet him. That's what John Loughborough says. All right? So, okay, how can we use this to figure out what happens to us? Okay, so let's make a little summary. Okay, I'm going to try to make a summary here. In 1798, the announcement of bridegroom cometh, right? Yeah. Because that's the first time that William Miller started preaching that Jesus is going to come. The first angel's message was given, right? Right, first angel's message. Okay? Then there's an increase of knowledge, and he became a licensed preacher, right? Okay, and the virgins go forth. When they go forth, they went forth with power, because there was a power that accompanied the preaching of Josiah Litch, that the Ottoman Empire is going to fall on August 11, 1840. Okay? That's the empowerment of the first angel's message. The first angel's message is empowered. Okay? And the Ottoman Empire is going to be restrained. It's going to fall. Right? But their first disappointment was April 19, 1844. Because this is also a close of probation for who? For the Protestants who rejected what? Who had rejected their message that was summarized in the 1843 chart that they first published in May 1842. Right? That's the second angel's message. They said, come out of the Protestant churches. Come out of the Protestant churches. Babylon has fallen because they have rejected the first angel's message that we have summarized in the 1843 chart. Right? It's a closed door. Right? For the who? For the Protestants. Okay. But they were disappointed. Jesus didn't come. Jesus didn't come, and they had to what? They had to tarry. They had to wait. They slumbered and they slept because they were disappointed. And then at midnight, right? At midnight, the 5th day of the 4th month, midway, right? This is midway. July 21, Samuel Snow gave the midnight cry message, right? The bridegroom cometh. And it's also a closed door. We know that midnight is a closed door, right? Yeah. And then another important waymark is the first day of the 5th month, because that's the Camp Exeter meeting. That's when they all understood it. Here, they did not understand it. Here, they finally understood it. And then they gave October, for sure they understood that October 22, 1844 is the Day of Atonement. All right? That's the beginning of the third angel's message was, right? The second angel's message was empowered here, right? Second angel's message was empowered. And they start preaching the third angel's message. But then when they gave the third angel's message, October 22, 1844, they were met with great disappointment because they realized that their understanding was incorrect, that Jesus was entering into the most holy place, not coming to earth. This is actually the second door for is actually the at midnight. You know, some people who will continue to follow them, right? Because there's going to be priests. There's going to be priests at midnight who will follow with them, but there's going to be priests that do not want to follow, right? There's going to be, because we know at midnight there's a door that closes, right? But there's also a door that closes here, right? Because only 50 eventually went on and became Seventh-day Adventists, right? And in 1850 they published a chart, right? The 1850 chart. Okay, all right, knowing all of that, how does that correspond to our time? How many, if this is midnight and this is sunset, how long is that, they said? It's 3 months, right?
Yeah.
This is half of a night, right? All right? And this is actually, we're talking about the priests. This is the this is actually the time for the priests, right? This, on another 3 months, is the time for the Levites. The Levites have to be sanctified, right? They're sanctified for 8 days, and this is in another 8 days over here. The Levites, the priests are sanctified, and the Levites are sanctified, right? 3 months and 3 months, right? Okay. Now we put our line here. This is our line. Okay, we know this is 1989. 1989, okay? All right, this is the time of the end also. Time of the end is 1989, all right? And then 9/11. the thing about it is, how do we get 9/11? Because at 9/11 is when there's a restraining of Islam. But also 9/11 is the first day of the first month. Okay, how do we get it? Because we have to combine these two, right? These two waymarks have to be combined. Now, how do we actually combine it? All right, because then we will find out this is the first day of the first month, but it's also the restraining of Islam. The restraining of Islam here, and this is the first day of the first month. That means that this actually are combined. Okay? All right. Now then there's going to be a tarrying time, which will lead us to midnight. Right? And there's going to be a midnight cry. Right? And then eventually the Sunday law. All right. How do we combine this then? The first day of the first month and Islam is restrained. Because the first day of the first month is 9/11. Okay, how do we combine this? All right? Okay, we actually have to understand. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a review. All right? We do have time. We're going to do a little bit of review of how we actually come to this our line. Okay, this is our line now. But this line is based upon the line that we have established up here. Right? Okay. And this is made the 1843 chart, and we have from 1850, we combine it with the 1850 chart. So we have two charts, 1843 and 1850 charts, because this is 1843 chart, and we have an 1850 chart here, right? And we keep going forward to our time, we have two charts now, okay? So we have two charts, right? So these are the old paths, right? We consider this the old path. Right? So how do we get to this? All right, this is going to be a review, okay? This is going to review of 9/11, right? Yeah, we've done this many times before, but I figured it's a good time to review 9/11, right? Because how do we get from the Millerite history to our timeline? All right, early writings, page 41. I saw that the powers of the earth are now being shaken, and that the events come in order. War and rumors of war, sword, famine, pestilence are first to shake the powers of the earth. Then what is war, rumors of war, sword, famine, and pestilence? What's that? The signs of the times, right? Remember? That's Matthew 24. Then the voice of God will shake the sun, moon, and stars, and this earth also. I saw that the shaking of the powers in Europe is not, as much some teach, the shaking of the powers of heaven, but is the shaking of the angry nations. So the signs of the times is actually associated with the shaking of the angry nations. All right? You got to put that together. Okay, put that, remember. The signs of the times is the shaking of the angry nations. Now, Review and Herald, April 21, 1890. The latter rain is to fall upon the people of God. Right? The latter rain is going to fall on the people of God. Okay, is this on the people who are dead and getting the investigative judgment of the dead? No. It's going to be on living people, right? A mighty angel is to come down from heaven, and the whole earth is to be lighted with his glory. Okay, what's the mighty angel that comes down from heaven and the whole earth is lighted with his glory? Which angel is this? Which angel is this? Right, yeah, this is the archangel, right. But which prophecy is this? Where in Revelation is this? The mighty angel that come down from heaven and the whole earth is lighted with his glory. Revelation 18. It's not Revelation 14. It's Revelation 18 angel. All right. Okay? You want to prove it? You go there. It's Revelation 18. The mighty angel that came down from heaven and the whole earth is lighted with his glory. Right? So Ellen White's saying is that when Revelation 18 angel comes down, what's going to happen? Latter rain is going to fall. On who? On God's people. Right? Latter rain is going to fall on God's people. Are these people alive or dead? They're alive. They're going to be, okay? All right. The latter rain starts to sprinkle. Okay. So we get, when angel of Revelation 18 comes, which is the fourth angel's message, the latter rain starts to sprinkle, right? Okay? The signs of the times is the shaking and the powers of the angry nations. Right? We put those two quotes together. Let's put this quote. We know this. July 5, 1906. How come the word that I have declared that New York is to be swept away by a tidal wave? This I have never said. I have said, as I look at the great buildings going up there, story after story, that terrible scenes will take place when the Lord shall arise and shake terribly the earth. Right? Shake terribly the earth is what? Angry nations. Angry nations when terribly the shaking, terrible earth. What will the Lord do? Will arise. What happens when the Lord arises? What happens when the Lord arises in heaven? What happens? There's a change in dispensation. Remember, before when Stephen was stoned, Stephen looked unto heaven, and what happened? Jesus was standing up. Why? There's a change of dispensation from the Jews to the Gentiles. So at 9/11, Jesus also arises. Why? There's a change of dispensation. Okay, what change of dispensation could this be? Pouring of latter rain. Right? It is now being given to who? Right. The Lord shall arise and shake terribly. There's going to be a shaking of the earth of the angry nations. Then the words of Revelation 18, 1-3 is, when 9/11 happens, Revelation 18, 1-3 is fulfilled. And Revelation 18 is fulfilled. That's the angel that came down, and the whole earth was lighted with his glory, and the latter rain falls. Right? Then the great buildings are thrown down as these massive structures will fall. Okay, so what does that mean now? So when we put this at, right? When the angel of Revelation 18 comes down, is the latter rain starts to sprinkle. Shake terribly earth, when the nations are angry, the fourth angel's message, the latter rain starts. Right? The signs of the times is to shake the powers of the angry nations. So what happened at 9/11 then? Jesus stands up, shaking of the angry nations. Were the nations angry? At 9/11, were the nations angry? Why? Islam attacked. Islam attacked, right? It was the shaking of the angry nations because Islam attacked. And then Revelation 18, 1-3 is fulfilled at 9/11. When Revelation 18, 1-3 is fulfilled, what happens? There's a sprinkling of the latter rain on God's people, meaning there's a beginning of a dispensation. It used to be that the investigative judgment was for that started in October 22, 1844, was for the who? For the dead. But now it's being poured to the living. So what happens? Because the dead don't need the sprinkle of the Holy Spirit, right? It's for the living. Why? Because now they are going to undergo their investigative judgment. So investigative judgment happens when? For the living. 9/11. And
that's your sanctification, maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is where you have to understand this.
That's the problem here now. We have believers, but they don't realize the urgency from that prophecy.
Right.
They try to be numb. They don't wake up from their slumber.
Mm-hmm.
And you will see it, you know. You will see it as you fellowship and associate with them.
Mm-hmm. And
I tell you, I teach the class this morning, so we have a little people.
see, this what is Ellen White said in Testimonies, volume 9, starting page
11.
starting page 11, that in New York the buildings have fallen.
That's
There's a fire.
11 to 13. And
Right.
those are pages, right?
Right.
Yeah,
11
Start page 11 to 13,
but volume 9.
but volume 9. See? So we understand from 9/11. Did something big happen at 9/11? Absolutely.
It changed.
But what did the leaders say? They believed nothing happened. So what happened to the leaders at 9/11? At 9/11 is when the Holy Spirit came down. When did the Holy Spirit come down upon Jesus?
Baptism.
At his baptism. What happened at his baptism? Right after his baptism, he chose 12 disciples. Did he choose the 12 disciples from the leadership of the church?
No.
He bypassed the leaders of the church. So at 9/11, there's a close of probation. For who? For the leadership. Right?
Wow. That's
There's a close of probation for the leadership. It's not for the church. It's not for the church. It's for the leadership who rejected 9/11. And where can you see that? The story of which kings? Which kings were killed by the arrow? And who's the arrow? Shot by an archer. Who's the archer? The archer is Ishmael. Who's the first archer in the Bible? It's Ishmael. Ishmael is the first archer. And who were the kings that were killed by an archer? Josiah, Saul, and Ahab. Yeah. They were all killed. They were all leaders of the church. They all were killed by the arrow of an archer, the arrow of Islam, right? And then he fell on his own sword, but he got hit by an arrow, right? Then he killed himself. They all got hit because our leaders have rejected the role of Islam at 9/11. They said nothing happened at 9/11. Right? This is so amazing. Right. Now, how do we actually are given the license that we can combine the first and the second angel's message together? Because Ellen White says this. I'm not going to read all of this. We have to combine the first, the second, and the third angel's message. They have to be combined. So the first and the second are combined to join with the third. The third has been preached since October 22, 1844. But the first and the second is repeated and combined to join with the third. Okay? You can get this here. Yeah? Just for a time's sake here. All right? The three angels' messages are to be combined. All right. All the three should be understood and combined. Okay? We have to combine it. All right? I mean, if you want to get the reference right there. Okay? SDA Bible Commentary. 985, right? This is our, I just got this from our old slides. We studied this, to be able to come up with our line, okay? All three should be understood and combined, right? The great message, combining the first, the second, and the third angel's message, is to be given to the world. This is to be the burden of our work. Right? These messages all blend in one to come before the people in the closing days of Earth's history. Absolutely.
in our churches today.
Hmm.
They remove it.
It's amazing.
Revelation 18:22.
All right, here we go. Let's combine this, okay? All right, we did this already, okay? All right, we got up until this is the line of the Millerites, okay? How this is the first angel's message empowered, second angel's message. So how do we combine now the third angel's message has been given since this time, right? And it continues to keep going. Right? It keeps going until our time, right? Right? It keeps going. But now the first angel's message is repeated here. And then the first angel's message is combined with the second angel's message, because the fourth angel's message is what? The fourth angel's message is given with a loud cry, with a loud voice, and Babylon is fallen. The first angel's message is given with a loud voice, and the second angel's message is Babylon is fallen. So the fourth angel's message is a combination of the first and the second. So you combine the first and the second angel's message, and it joins with the third angel's message that has been preached since 1844. So now we have combined the first and the second with the third angel's message at 9/11. When Christ stands up and the Holy Spirit is being poured, starting to be sprinkled, right, upon God's people, right? And that is the beginning of the investigative judgment. So why is there an investigative judgment for God's people who are alive? I have the quote, but I don't have it with me right now. Why? So that they can stand in the time of Jacob's trouble. Meaning, some people who are alive here will stand during the 7 plagues. They will never die.
You never. A lot of people doesn't understand what you're saying. Yeah.
This is so scary if you're not ready.
Yeah.
Right?
It will get us ready.
Right?
Yes, you have to be ready with the certain types that will be done.
Right? Yeah. And Jesus himself said, how do you know when is the end of the world? When is the end of the world? And he says, when the leaves bud forth. From that time, this generation shall not pass. Right? When does the leaves bud forth? When does leaves bud forth? When there's rain. And what is rain?
Holy Spirit.
So when the Holy Spirit comes here down, and this is the Spirit of Jesus coming down, right?
Yes.
This is the Spirit of Jesus coming down, right? And the leaves bud forth here. Not one generation will pass until the temple will be taken down. One stone will not be on top of the other. The generation shall not pass.
And one generation is 40 years.
Right? Yeah. From 9/11. Okay? Wow. So we have our line here. Yeah? We just have to remember, this is the midnight cry, and that's the Sunday law. Right? The 10th day of the 7th month. All right. So after studying all of this together, we have to put this all together so that we can understand our line. This is the reason why we do all of this, right? Okay? And then from this, we understand that this is the first day of the first month. If the first day of the first month, okay, and this is midnight. The first day of the first month, and this is the disappointment, where is sunset? Okay, where is sunset? Okay, this is what we're going to study next time, okay? Right now it's a little bit confusing. Where is sunset? Wait a minute. Did sunset start here? Wait, the virgins go forth because the sunset is when the virgins go forth. They go forth from their houses and they go to the bride's house waiting for the bridegroom. And they go forth to the house of the bride at sunset. So if this is sunset, wait a minute. We're way past sunset now.
Oh yeah, it's just a few, before midnight.
Huh? This is midnight. Okay. All right. We are way past sunset. Okay. Now this is what we're going to study next time. All right. So next week, yeah, there you go. There's going to be multiple sunsets.
So there's probably a sunset at 9/11. There's probably a sunset right before midnight.
Okay. My question is, if sunset happens at 9/11, whose sunset is it for?
Yeah, that's the question. Whose sunset is that?
Whose probation closed then?
The priest.
No. Who's at? The leaders. All right.
Wow, it's scary.
It's the sunset for the leaders. Okay. All right. And that is a more sure word of